mentioned a few minutes ago that you've been at LinkedIn for 16 years.
Yeah.
Was that always the plan? What's made you stay?
Was it always the plan to join? I didn't even know LinkedIn existed.
If you were Prime Minister for the day, what would you do?
So Love Actually, that scene where Hugh Grant is like dancing through number 10. I think if I had one day in number 10, I would be dancing through the building and posting about it extravagantly on LinkedIn.
Since Elon Musk bought Twitter, there seems to be, certainly in my area of LinkedIn, more people have gone to LinkedIn and left X as it now is because of the changes there. It used to be that's where companies would make big announcements, and you always, as a journalist, always have to be on X all the time. Now it seems to be that LinkedIn is the place to be. LinkedIn influencers who have created a one-page PDF document about how you should do to boost your post engagements. And it's a breakdown of the LinkedIn algorithm, of what they think works and what they think doesn't work. Is that all rubbish?
I can honestly tell you, I don't even have access to our algorithm.
Hello and welcome to another edition of City AM's Boardroom Uncovered with me, Jon Robinson. My guest for this episode is Janine Chamberlin, the UK boss of LinkedIn. Chamberlin joined the US social media giant in 2008 and has held the top job in this country since 2021. A LinkedIn profile has become a must-have for any professional these days, but the platform has come in for its fair share of criticism in recent years. But how much say does LinkedIn's UK boss actually have over the business person's social media of choice? And what does its future hold for the younger generation? Without any further delay, let's dive in.
Well, Janine, thank you very much for coming on Boardroom Uncovered. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
I guess I want to start with your job role. We have a lot of CEOs on this show, and it's obvious what their job role is, but you're the UK country manager of LinkedIn, a company, of course, that's owned by Microsoft, headquarters in the US. I'm wondering about what scope you have in your job to actually implement your own ideas.
So my job is actually twofold. Part of my job is as head of LinkedIn UK. So I oversee our UK office and operation, where we have a number of different teams that don't directly report into me. We're very much a matrix organization, but I play a role in connecting the dots between all those teams and kind of really focusing on the community that we have in the UK office, as well as representing LinkedIn externally. And I have a second role as a business leader within the company, also running one of our sales teams. It's the easiest way to say it.
Do you get much say in what you're in charge of in the UK? Do you have to, run all of your ideas past the US, or do you have your own sort of kingdom to look out?
It very much depends what you're talking about. So very much within my remit is anything related to the office. For example, we recently opened up an experience center, and I've been very close to the development of that, the design, the kind of thinking about how are we going to use that space, what boundaries do we put in place, etc. Whereas there's, other things, if you think about the way that LinkedIn's product is designed, for example, a lot of that work does not happen in the UK, so I'm not necessarily involved.
Well, I guess I'm trying to work out whether UK LinkedIn looks and feels any different to US LinkedIn, or is it the same platform everywhere?
Yeah. Platform for our members, you mean? Or platform for us?
For the members, if you log on to or go on the app of LinkedIn, maybe logs on these days today. That's very old-fashioned language of me to use. But you go on the app, does it look and feel the same in the UK that it does in other territories?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the good thing about LinkedIn, I suppose, from a user experience perspective, is that the experience is very much personal to every individual on the platform. The platform itself is the same wherever you are in the world. Also, us as a company, we're the same wherever you are in the world. If I go visit my colleagues in New York, I walk through the doors and it feels like the same office as when I walk through the doors in London. So there's a really strong culture at LinkedIn. But also the company's really driven very, very clearly by our vision and by our mission.
Lots of people, probably most people watching or listening to this, will have a LinkedIn account. And with that profile comes opinions as well. It seems to be one of those social media platforms that everybody's got opinion of, whether they think it's useful for their job or whether they think it's changed in recent years, for whatever reason that is. I was actually speaking to my dad about this. He says, ask why LinkedIn, here we go, why LinkedIn is turning into Facebook. But clearly he thinks on his feeds that people are talking about their personal issues rather than what they're basically set up to be a professional networking site.
Yeah.
What would you say to that allegation from Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, Mr. Robinson. Well, what I have to say about that. So, let me actually start with this. If you think about so I've been at the company for 16 years, and if you think about the evolution that the company has gone through, that comes with a change in the members that have also signed up for the platform. So that's the first thing I want to call out. When I joined back in 2008, we had less than 25 million members on the platform. Now we have 1.2 billion members. And so we have a lot of different industries represented. We have a lot of different functions represented. And with that, you get people talking about different things. For LinkedIn, for us, the identity is really clear. We are a professional network. But I think that what you can see is that over the last, especially I would say the last 5 years, we've had, of course, the whole episode of COVID, people working from home. And some of the boundaries between what we do in our personal life and what we do in our professional lives, they have become a little bit more blurred. And there are things that maybe someone might interpret as a personal update, but is very much related to someone's professional life or someone's professional identity. And there's space for that on LinkedIn. But there is no doubt in our minds, LinkedIn is a professional network and we want to keep it that way.
You said over the last few years or so that maybe the way that people are using LinkedIn has changed. I'm also wondering whether the type of person who's signed up to LinkedIn in the last few years has changed. And what I mean is, since Elon Musk bought Twitter, there seems to be, certainly in my area of LinkedIn, more people have gone to LinkedIn and left X as it now is because of the changes there. It used to be that's where companies would make big announcements, and you always, as a journalist, always have to be on X all the time. Now it seems to be that LinkedIn is the place to be. Have you seen a change in the number of people coming to the platform? Does that ring true to you, what I've just described?
So I think what really rings true to me is that our audience is continuously growing and therefore expanding. Something interesting about what you just said, what we can see is that we've seen a 30% uptick in C-suite leaders actually actively using the platform, whether that's to share announcements, to build their own personal profiles and their own brands. There's a real advantage in having a business leader representing a company on the platform because it really helps in attracting talent, but also communicating with your own employees about the messages that really, really matter to you. And I think the other thing that we're seeing, obviously, video is the fastest growing content on the platform. And we see that also C-suite leaders are using video to share announcements on LinkedIn. So I think it's the breadth of options that is now available to communicate both to employees, to prospective employees, to customers through LinkedIn. That's definitely evolving and growing very fast.
Do you think LinkedIn is profiting from a change in people's social media usages? Then maybe the narrative seems to be that fewer people are using X, for example, in a professional capacity. Do you think that your platform has benefits as a direct result of that?
As a platform, we welcome anyone who wants to use LinkedIn, obviously, to communicate with their audiences and also to build their own network and kind of find the information that they're looking for. What I can see is that we continue to grow at a pretty fast pace as an organization. Our membership continues to diversify and expand, which I think is a great thing because that really makes the experience for all of our members richer on the platform.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that you've been at LinkedIn for 16 years.
Yeah.
Was that always the plan? What's made you stay?
Oh, I thought, was it always the plan to join? I didn't even know LinkedIn existed. What has made me stay? So, first and foremost, I joined LinkedIn, I guess, for a couple of different reasons. At the time, no idea what it could become. But I was really attracted to what it offered, the product that it offered. So my background is in online advertising. And when you think back of 2008, LinkedIn was quite advanced in how you could target online advertising to specific audiences. And as a bit of a nerd, I was really attracted to that. And then secondly, the people who were at LinkedIn at the time and sort of talked me through the potential that this company offered, that was really, really appealing to me. And that's why I joined. And I think 16 years later, I really test myself very regularly. Have I been here too long? Should I start looking for other opportunities? But there's still so much potential in the company. And so the potential that has always been there's always that new thing on the horizon that I'm like, oh, I don't want to miss out. Now there's this other thing coming. And that's also offered like opportunities for me to keep growing, to change jobs. I've done a lot of different things at LinkedIn. And so, yeah, it continues to be a really interesting and attractive place for me to be for those reasons.
I can imagine. Janine, we've got some quick fire questions for you now. First one is, what was your first job?
My first job, I think it must have been me selling my books and toys when I was head up with them to the local secondhand toy shop.
Get any money from that?
Like 50 cents here or there.
Yeah.
Cents because I grew up in the Netherlands and not in the UK. But yes.
All right. Who inspires you?
I don't really have one person that inspires me. I get inspired by people who are like go-getters, ambitious, people who achieve against the odds, people who are not afraid to speak up for what they believe in. If I think back of, one of the first people, if you could call it like that, because it's not a real person, who inspired me is probably Baby in Dirty Dancing. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
No.
That is still my strapline when I think I'm a bit uncomfortable to speak up. I think nobody puts baby in the corner, and that helps me.
If you had to appoint a celebrity to your senior leadership team, who'd it be and why?
Yeah. I'm going to say will.i.am.
Okay.
Yes. And that's because I had the amazing opportunity to very briefly meet him recently. And so maybe not everybody knows this about him, but he is not only a great musician, but he's an entrepreneur. He's invested in a lot of tech startups. But what I particularly love about the work that he is doing, he's really invested in developing AI, but specifically with a view to help education and to make education more accessible. And so I think he does some fantastic work and would love his creativity on my team.
This is sign up. Here I know.
Yeah, I'm trying very hard.
What's the best thing about your job?
The people.
There we are. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
When I used to say when I grow up, I will say now when I grow old. I'd really like to become a funeral director one day.
I didn't expect you to say that.
No.
Why is that?
I think it's a really honorable job. And, I guess I first really got introduced to the concept of a funeral director when my grandmother passed away many years ago. And this lady really helped my family and myself through the process of not just, the funeral, but also the grieving and how do you process that. And so I think it's an incredibly honorable job, and I would really like to spend some time in my life doing that.
There we go. I'll wait for the LinkedIn updates.
Yeah.
And finally, if you were Prime Minister for the day, what would you do?
What would you achieve in one day as a Prime Minister, hey? So Love Actually, that scene where Hugh Grant is dancing through number 10. I think if I had one day in number 10, I would be dancing through the building and posting about it extravagantly on LinkedIn.
That's not a bad answer, so that's brilliant. That's probably the best one. Talk to me about growing up in the Netherlands there. You referenced that earlier.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Great, actually. So I grew up in a family that was very much orientated around the business that my mom and dad ran. So my mom and dad ran a cleaning business. background to that is my granddad started as a window cleaner. He had this like wooden cart, you know, pulled it through the streets, cleaned the windows of houses. My dad got involved when he was only 14 years old, and so they grew this company into, mid-sized cleaning company. They had about 200 employees, and um, like our life really revolved around that. And it was great. Like as you can imagine, in a cleaning company, my parents employed people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds, and so I really grew up with very strong values actually around how do you treat everybody with respect. And like one of the things that always stuck with me, I remember my dad talking about this at home. There were times when, there were refugees coming to the Netherlands and they would find employment at my parents' company, but they were trained and skilled to do like way bigger jobs, as my dad would really think about that. And it always really upset him. He's like, oh, I've got this man and he's great and he should be a lawyer. He was a lawyer in his home country, but he can't practice law here. And so I grew up with that. And I think is one of the reasons why I love being at LinkedIn, because we are so focused on helping people to really control how you kind of build your career and what you can achieve, and through whether it's through learning courses, access to networks, etc. So I think I have that from growing up. That's really meaningful and important to me.
Is there anything about living in the Netherlands that you miss because now you live in London? It's not very far for you to pop back, of course, but is it the food? Is it the lack of hills?
When I was cycling in Surrey, yes, the lack of hills for sure came to mind. It's really funny so I have a 14-year-old son, and of course we go back to visit my parents quite frequently. And when he goes there, he always says like, oh, I love being in the Netherlands because I can breathe more easily. And I don't think there's anything to do with the air quality, by the way, but I think there is something about the Netherlands that's very laid back. It's not necessarily a slower pace of life or anything like this, but I think that people are, pretty direct, easy to communicate with. And I like to think that that's what he means with like, I can breathe more easily when I'm there. So I miss that.
Yeah. Well, let's return to LinkedIn. Something I see all the time, pretty much every day, multiple times a day on my LinkedIn feed. I think this must be the case for a lot of people, is LinkedIn influencers who have created a one-page PDF document about what you should do to boost your post engagements.
Okay.
And it's a breakdown of the LinkedIn algorithm, of what they think works and what they think doesn't work. Is that all rubbish? Because surely they don't have access to your algorithm.
I can honestly tell you, I don't even have access to our algorithm. But also, our algorithm gets optimized all of the time because, as you can imagine, the platform evolves, the whatever is happening around us evolves, and so it's always being optimized, ultimately to make sure that every member gets the best possible experience from the platform. And so I would say, like, rather than focusing on how do I gain the algorithm, right? How do I crack it and then optimize for that? Like, optimize for the things that are genuinely true to you, that you want to share, things that you've learned, things that you're working on. Like, that's what is interesting to other members. And I think it's much more important to focus on that than trying to crack an algorithm.
Well, we were talking off there about X and how they are wanting to keep people on the platform by deprioritizing posts with links in. What I see all the time on LinkedIn is somebody will do a post and then they'll put the link in the comments because they think that the algorithm will deprioritize the original post because it's got a link embedded in that. Is that true? Is that an urban myth?
I think it's interesting what you're saying, because there's something about you post something and you immediately comment on it. And so I think that immediate engagement will have some influence in how the algorithm is picking that up. I can't deny or confirm that the algorithm would say, oh, there's a link, so we're going to deprioritize that. I do believe from my personal experience that the algorithm favors original content. So rather than reposting something from somebody else, make it original. Again, like stay true to what you believe in, what you're experiencing, what you're seeing is much more valuable to post than reposting something that somebody else has already written.
Lots of people watching this and listening to this will be wanting to know your top 3 tips about what they can do to boost the engagement of their LinkedIn posts.
Yeah.
What would you say to them?
So, first and foremost, I think I've already said it now a couple of times, but I think boosting engagement on the platform, it's all about making sure that you share original content and that you talk about things that I don't want to overuse this word authenticity, but that is authentic and true to yourself. I think that's really important. I do think that rich media, right? So video content is our fastest growing content on the platform. And if you're not too shy about it, it can be really easy to record just a selfie video to talk about the things that you are experiencing, maybe some knowledge that you want to share, some insights that you want to share with your network. Video content is incredibly engaging and clearly, our viewership continues to trend upwards for video content. So I would say, if you're not too shy about it, definitely do that. And then the third thing I would say is it's about regularly posting on the platform as well. So personally, like I've experienced this. Actually, I'll go back a little while ago. Maybe this is a little bit boring, but just at the start of COVID, we were all sent home, work from home, and I thought, okay, we're going to be working from home for 2 weeks. What I'll do is I'm going to put a post on LinkedIn every day of this 2 weeks to share my experience of working from home. And that was actually for me a turning point. I never really used to post that much, believe it or not. I've been at the company for a long time, but I never really used to post that much because I thought, who wants to hear about my strange thoughts and ideas? And I was a bit shy about it, right? But then when COVID came, I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to doing this every day. And ultimately, I managed to commit to about 100 days of every day posting. Yeah. And when you post regularly, obviously, people start to recognize that they will follow your content. And I think that's a really good way to kind of grow followership and therefore engagement. So that would be my third.
There seems to be trends that come and go out of fashion, really, with LinkedIn and other social media platforms as well. But a few years ago, it seems to be the selfie picture. And now it's video. Is video something that you are, as a company, particularly focusing on? Is that a conscious choice? Or is that just because it boosts engagement? It just happens to be the case.
So because it's a very popular way for people to share messaging, it is something that we are focused on and that we're investing in to make sure that the experience is really optimized for our members, both from a publishing video content perspective, but also, of course, receiving video content.
Of course, not everybody goes to LinkedIn to post. They go to find a new job.
That's true.
This isn't just a LinkedIn problem. There's other problems as well, but with other sites. But ghost jobs, companies posting a job that they're never going to fill. Yeah. And particularly the younger generation coming into the workforce that might go on LinkedIn, see a ghost job and then get a bad experience from that. They would naturally think that LinkedIn is in on it.
Yeah.
They're in cahoots.
What an awful experience.
Yeah.
Yes. I have several friends and family members with young people who are trying to find their first job, and I know how difficult it is. So I genuinely hope that we can stop any of those ghosting experiences. Something that we're really focused on at LinkedIn is around verification. So let me start with just say LinkedIn is really invested in trust. And one of the ways in which we believe that we can build that trust is by verifying jobs, verifying member profiles, verifying companies. So for example, we have verification badges for all of those things, but also for recruiters. So that somebody who's applying to a job knows that this is a recruiter who's genuinely recruiting for a specific company. And with that, we want to avoid people having a bad experience, like a job that doesn't even exist.
It's interesting you mentioned the word trust. I was thinking about this, and obviously you want more people to be verified on the site, and trust is very big issue for you. But to be verified as a personal account, you got to put your passport number in.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this, and I don't know how I personally feel about it, because I'm not sure I fully trust putting my passport number into LinkedIn.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, well, where else do I put my passport number into? And it's airlines. And I don't think there's no second thought about that. There's no issue at all. But it's interesting in my mind, at least, and there might be for other people as well, that there's something stopping me trusting you with that data.
Yeah. I think it's important to know that you're not actually sharing your passport details with LinkedIn. So the way that our verification works is actually through third parties who are set up to handle this data with confidentiality and obviously make sure that that doesn't go anywhere else. And so you're not actually sharing your passport number with LinkedIn directly. It goes through a third party that is set up to verify and then obviously make the connection that it is verified, but then that data doesn't get stored or that nothing happens with that data. So I think that's an important part of the trust piece there. And we now have 70 million members who have actually verified their identity. And as that grows, I do think that it will help members to understand that this is the place that I know that this is a genuine person that I'm dealing with, that I'm talking to, and that I can work with, build my network.
Yeah. Of course, LinkedIn is not the only social media platform out there, but it is unique in what it is offering to its members. I'm wondering whether you have seen the younger generation that's coming into the workforce now. Are they joining LinkedIn in the numbers that you would expect, or are they staying off and maybe they're just sticking to TikTok and Instagram and YouTube?
I think the younger generation have a real ability to multitask across the social media platforms. It's a really important generation for us. And so we really want to make sure that the platform is relevant for the younger generation and that they get real value from it. So you might have seen we've done a number of campaigns to explain with like short, snappy videos why LinkedIn can be helpful either to find your first job or when you're in your first job and you're learning about all this jargon that you might not have heard before. How do you quickly build the knowledge that you require? How do you build a network so that you have people around you? So we're really trying to support younger people in kind of building that from scratch. It's an important hook.
Finally, Janine, how does one person become a top voice on LinkedIn? How can you become part of that invite-only exclusive club?
So it's literally how you use the platform and what you post on the platform that obviously draws that engagement. So we look at top voices as people who get the followership and the engagement of other members. It's not something that, we create like, now that I know you, we'll shake hands and I'll give you a top voice tick on the platform.
How do you want to?
Well, let's talk after. Yeah. But this is really driven by the engagement that these individuals get on the platform.
Brilliant. Well, Janine, thank you very much for coming on Boardroom Uncovered. Great to have you.
Having me.
Thank you.